I am unsupervised and I am setting up for an upcoming stream where we will be building another production system. Right now we have 3 theoretical production systems, 2 of which are actually capable of rendering videos and 1 of which we actually use for rendering videos. And that is the one that we built with Brian from BTS Customs recently. It's got 2 Tesla V100s in it. It's a very nice system, and it makes the other render system that we have in there look very slow by comparison. So that is what we are solving. We have a 3175X that we were sent for review. We reviewed it, we revisited it, and we have no further use for it outside of putting it in a system where it can render videos. We might want to revisit it in the future. So we're going to do the same thing that we did with the other system where we use soft tubing and make sure that we can reclaim the CPU in the future if we need to test it. I say soft tubing because it will be a liquid-cooled system, and there is a reason for that. We have also received from EVGA their new SR3 motherboard, the long-awaited and probably last motherboard built specifically for the W3175X. It will fit other Xeons of that socket type and chipset type, but there's no reason why you would put a non-overclockable Xeon in a board like this. We get really paranoid about doing ESD checks because I'm wearing a sweater right now. The SR3 has integrated liquid cooling for the chipset, which is probably not necessary, but it's really cool, and we're going to use it because you have to use it. There's no fan on there. And the thought process was, if we're going to use the 3175X in a production system, and we're going to test the SR3 motherboard, and we're going to have to set up liquid cooling in order to test the SR3 motherboard, then we might as well make that our production system, because we're already going to have to figure out a loop and everything in order to test this. So this is going to be what's going in the permanent system. So along with that, our other core components are going to be 2 Quadro RTX 5000 cards. We at one point had 1 of these in each of the systems we would use for video editing and rendering. Since we replaced one of those systems, we have a free one, and since we're going to replace the other one, we're going to have 2 that are going to go in the new system, and we're going to liquid cool these. We have blocks on the way. EK will be making blocks for these, but not in time for us to get them, so we're going to be getting blocks from elsewhere. We will be attempting to use the EK acetal bridges that we bought far too many of for the BPS Customs system. If they're compatible with the blocks that we bought, that will be a great use of our like 16 acetal bridges or something that we got. We went way overboard so that we would never be caught short. EVGA has sent us a power supply to go along with the board. This is yet another 1600 T2. I think this is the 4th one in the office, because Intel also sent one along with the original review system. We have some G-Skill Trident Z Royal, which we're not using because it looks cool. We're using it because we have 6 sticks of it. And this is, this board has 6 memory slots. The Dominus Extreme from the original review system has 12, but we never used more than 6 of those slots anyway, and it has the same number of memory channels. As for cooling, we're going to be using what we have left after the other liquid-cooled build. We have another of these heat killer tubes. We have a D5 pump from a Thermaltake, like pre-built pump reservoir combo that we're stealing. So hopefully it is fully compatible with this housing and doesn't leak. It seems like it is. And Alpha Cool, it's got a stupid name. Nexos with 3 X's, and one of them is capital, and also the S is capital. Monsta with an A, full copper radiator 360. This is a stupidly huge radiator, and every time we've done a liquid cooled project, we've attempted to foist this radiator off on whatever build it is, but it never fits, and now we're finally going to actually use it. We can't really use it for anything other than a permanent build because it's so huge. So the other radiator in the system, it'll be a dual radiator system, and we've picked this Corsair 280 radiator. It's copper, and it takes 140 fans, which we have a lot of. And that's our only criteria for picking this one, but I'm sure it's a fine radiator. As for the actual CPU block, we will be using this heat killer block from Watercool because we do not want to disassemble this EK, like quote unquote CLC. It's a pre-built kind of semi-open loop, and we want to leave that together for future use if we need it. The more direct reason for building this is one of the production systems has repeatedly been acting up. It is configured identically to the other production system that actually works, but for whatever reason, I don't even know what issues the editors were having with it. I think it was like freezing on the timeline and stuff like that, being really laggy. Acting like it didn't have a 10 gigabit Ethernet connection, sometimes even when it said it did. And that is the one we're replacing. We can actually show that off. So if you've ever seen this system in behind the scenes footage, this is the one that has been giving us trouble. Rarely, if ever, you have used it for doing video renders because of the unreliability, and we only use it for editing when we're forced to. The GPU is different than it has been because we were using this for some game testing. And that might be what this ends up being dedicated to in the future. It's a fully built system, so we might leave it together and use it if we ever need to have a gaming computer. Steve really hates this motherboard though. I really hate the BIOS specifically. NZXT already knows that, so hopefully their feelings aren't too much more hurt by hearing that again. It's a very simplistic BIOS. And as for what the new system will be used for, we're going to be doing editing, probably more editing than rendering, assuming the V100s are better at rendering, especially with the 3960X that's in there right now. But we'll see. It'll be interesting to benchmark them side by side because those RTX 5000 cards are very nice as well. So one of the biggest obstacles in planning this build has been the size of the motherboard. The EVGA SR3 is, I believe, smaller. Yeah, I haven't held them side by side yet, but it is smaller than the gigantic Dominus Extreme board. It's EATX. We've measured, I believe the SR3 is exactly 13 inches wide. Again, smaller than the Dominus Extreme, but wider than a typical EATX board, if there is such a thing. And that's actually one of the complaints that we've had when looking for a case for this, is that EATX doesn't seem like it really means anything. ATX has a generally agreed upon size. EATX is ATX but wider, which in this case means 13 inches. In the case of a lot of the enclosures we have that list EATX support, they support 11-inch wide boards. Our search for a case that would fit this board, we considered using a case that we already have, which would mean finding a case that would fit a 13-inch board but maybe not technically support it. And we didn't really want to do that because we want the full set of standoffs under this board to support its weight. There's a liquid cooling block on here. You know, we don't want any kind of flexing or anything like that. And it's a very expensive board. And it's a system that we're actually using for production rather than just like one day of testing. So the second plan was to maybe contact a manufacturer for a case that we had seen at a trade show that we had liked, and we actually reached out to a couple companies, but I think one of the cases we had been interested in, there was a glass panel that was broken, and it was a one-off case, so that was going to be more trouble than it was worth, and it was hard to get responses on that anyway. So what we were left with was the massive, ugly, gigantic, like, how many more synonyms for that can I put in? This Anides case that Intel sent with the original review system for the W3175X. This is, I'm assuming, the cheapest case they could find that would actually house the full Dominus Extreme board. It's large, and that's its main asset. So the Anides is the case we settled on. We think we can do something cool with it just because all the parts we've chosen so far are black or silver or transparent, except for some of the gold accents on the EVGA board. So we think we can do something kind of cool with blackout. We'll take these fans out. I think these are RGB or something, maybe just B. And it's also going to be a lot easier to work with than any of the other cases we have. As plain as it is, it's extremely simple to just stick a radiator in there. It's actually compatible with Watercool's stupid giant radiator. Fits right in the front, or it would if there wasn't a fan down there, but trust me, it fits. I checked earlier. So this is what we're going to do. And just to summarize, our goals are to replace the unreliable existing editing station and have this be a much higher quality, much more reliable editing station that we can still take the CPU out of and put back into the Dominus Extreme for future testing if we need to. All right, so look forward to the stream. The parts are in the mail. I believe the blocks we've ordered are Bikeski or Bixski. They're a Chinese company that we hope uses exactly the same fittings as EK. It kind of looks like it. And we'll be putting this together on stream, and then you'll be seeing videos that are rendered on it. So look forward to it.